In this video, we'll learn how to predict the charge of ions. The question reads, predict the charges of the monoatomic ions formed by these main group elements. The first one we'll focus on is aluminum. Take a look at the periodic table and notice where aluminum is found. Aluminum is a main group metal and therefore loses electrons to form a cation with the same number of electrons as the nearest noble gas. Here it is on the periodic table. Aluminum atoms have 13 electrons, and the nearest noble gas is neon, which has 10 electrons. Aluminum tends to lose 3 electrons to form a cation with a 3+ charge. Remember, if you're losing electrons, you're becoming more positive. Al 3+. In question B, we have sulfur. Sulfur is a nonmetal and therefore gains electrons to form an anion this time with the same number of electrons as the nearest noble gas, as shown on the periodic table. As you can see, sulfur has 16 protons, and in its neutral state would have 16 electrons. And the nearest noble gas is argon, which has 18 electrons. Take a look. Sulfur tends to gain 2 electrons to form an anion with a charge of 2-, forming S2-. In our next example, we'll focus on nitrogen. Nitrogen is a gas that contains 7 protons and therefore 7 electrons in its neutral state. If nitrogen forms an ion, it needs to gain 3 electrons in order to become like the nearest noble gas. So we write down nitrogen is N3-. Lastly, we have the element rubidium. Let's find out where rubidium is in the periodic table. Rubidium is a metal, and it's found in the first group. This tells us that rubidium needs to lose one of its electrons so it becomes like krypton, the nearest noble gas. So we write down Rb 1+. And so there you have it. That is how to predict the charge of ions.